betrayal doesn't start with a single moment. It starts with a choice. A glance held too long, a thought entertained when it shouldn't be, a boundary pushed just a little further each time. And before you know it, you're standing on the other side of a line you swore you'd never cross. People love to talk about infidelity stories as if they're just black and white, good and evil, but the truth? It's messy. It's intoxicating. It's a fire that burns everything in its path, including the one who started it. I know this because I lived it. You think you're in control. You tell yourself it's nothing, just a thrill, a secret no one will ever know. But infidelity doesn't just touch the person being betrayed. It transforms the betrayer, twisting their reality until they don't even recognize themselves anymore. One moment, you're just flirting with temptation. The next, you're caught in a web of cheating stories so tangled that there's no easy way out. And the worst part? The guilt doesn't come right away. At first, it's all excitement, stolen moments, a rush unlike anything else. But sooner or later, the weight of what you've done catches up to you. And when it does, there's no running from it. This is my real story of infidelity, raw and unfiltered. Not just the thrill, but the wreckage left behind. The kind of betrayal that doesn't just destroy trust, it reshapes your entire life. If you've ever wondered what really happens when you step over that line, when the forbidden confessions stop being fantasies and start being consequences, keep watching. Because once you see what I've seen, you'll never look at cheating in marriage the same way again. And before we dive into this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of these eye-opening truths. If you know someone who needs to hear this, share this video, because some lessons are too important to keep to yourself. There's something almost poetic about the places we pass by every day without ever stepping inside. That bar had always been there, on the corner, with its dim golden light spilling onto the pavement, but they had never felt the urge to enter. Until that night. It wasn't planned. It wasn't even logical. But some of the best stories of infidelity and cheating don't start with logic. They start with impulse. A whisper of curiosity, a nudge from the universe. And that night, as they crossed that threshold, something shifted in the air, thick with the scent of whiskey and unspoken confessions. The atmosphere inside was intoxicating in ways that had nothing to do with alcohol. A hum of laughter, the clinking of ice in glasses, the way strangers seemed to lock eyes a second longer than necessary. It was a place that held forbidden confessions in every darkened corner. They felt it immediately, a rush of something unfamiliar yet thrilling. This wasn't just a bar. It was a playground for the untamed, the ones who danced too close to the fire. And that realization sent a charge through them, a slow burn of anticipation that refused to fade even days later. Because here's the thing about moments like this, they don't just happen. They carve themselves into your memory, leaving imprints long after they're gone. That night wasn't just another night. It was the kind that lingers, that makes you look over your shoulder at your life and wonder, what else have I been walking past without noticing? It was the beginning of something they couldn't name yet, something just out of reach. But they could feel it. And soon, they'd find out exactly what it was. The moment they stepped inside, they noticed him. Liam. There was something about the way he carried himself, calm, confident, with a gaze that seemed to cut straight through the noise. He wasn't just a bartender. He was a storyteller and observer, the kind of person who saw people for who they really were. And for the first time in a long time, they felt truly seen. That's the thing about attraction. It's not always about looks or charm. Sometimes it's about being recognized in a way that shakes you to your core. And in that dimly lit bar, under the hum of conversations and jazz playing softly in the background, they felt it. Chemistry is a strange, unpredictable force. It doesn't ask for permission, and it doesn't wait for the right moment. It just happens, an electric charge, a shift in energy, a silent agreement between two people who know, without words, that something is there. Liam leaned in slightly when he spoke, his voice smooth like aged bourbon. A simple question. First time here? Yet it carried a weight that made their pulse quicken. Was this how infidelity stories began? Not with grand betrayals, but with small moments, with the realization that someone else's attention could awaken something long dormant inside? They answered, but their mind was already racing, caught in the pull of something both exhilarating and dangerous. It was reckless to feel this way, wasn't it? To let themselves enjoy the way Liam's eyes lingered just a little too long. And yet, isn't that what makes life worth living? The moments that make you feel alive, even if they come with a risk? They hadn't even taken a sip of their drink yet, but they were already intoxicated. And soon, the night would take an even more unexpected turn. Then, as if the universe wanted to test them, Jack walked in. He wasn't subtle, his presence demanded attention. Broad shoulders, a sharp jawline, and an effortless confidence that made people turn their heads. But it wasn't just his looks. It was the way he carried himself, like someone who had never once questioned his place in the world. And when his eyes locked onto the narrators, there was no mistaking it. He had noticed the way Liam was looking at them, and he wasn't about to let that go unanswered. Suddenly, the air in the bar felt charged, the kind of tension that could either spark something unforgettable or burn everything to the ground. There's something intoxicating about being the center of a silent competition, about feeling two people's attention collide over you like waves crashing against each other. Jack was different from Liam. Where Liam had a quiet intensity, Jack was all fire and impulse. He didn't wait, he moved. Within moments, he was beside them, his voice smooth, his smile sharp. "Hope I'm not interrupting," he said, though they all knew he absolutely was. This wasn't just flirtation, it was a game. And the narrator was caught in the middle, heart pounding, a cocktail of adrenaline and desire swirling through their veins. Infidelity and cheating, did they always start like this? With temptation wrapped in charisma, impossible to ignore? The night had taken on a new rhythm now. Every glance, every touch, every carefully chosen word between the three of them carried an unspoken challenge. It wasn't just about attraction anymore, it was about choice. Liam, steady and intense. Jack, bold and undeniable. The narrator, torn between them, balancing on the edge of something thrilling and dangerous. And in moments like these, choices weren't always made with logic. They were made with impulse, with hunger, with the reckless need to see just how far things could go.
And tonight?
Tonight, they were about to find out. There's a moment right before you make a reckless decision when everything slows down. A final chance to step back, to rethink. But some nights aren't meant for second thoughts. The narrator knew at the moment they followed Liam and Jack out of the bar, stepping into the cool night air, heart pounding. The tension between the three of them had been building, rising like a tide that could no longer be held back. And as they walked toward Liam's place, there was no doubt about what was coming. No guilt, no hesitation, just the thrill of giving in to something that felt inevitable. Infidelity stories often begin with stolen glances, but this was something else entirely. Liam's apartment was exactly as expected, Moody lighting, a lived-in warmth, and an air of confidence, like he knew exactly the effect his face would have. Jack wasted no time, dropping onto the couch with a smirk, while Liam moved with an unshakable calm, pouring drinks as if the night weren't crackling with anticipation. There was an unspoken understanding between them all. No one had to say it. No one had to ask. The tension had already answered everything. The first touch sent a shock through the narrator's system, a mix of desire and disbelief. This was happening. This was real. And there was no turning back now. What happened next wasn't just passion, it was release. It was stepping into the unknown and surrendering to it completely. It was an experience that blurred lines, that defied definition, that rewrote everything the narrator thought they knew about themselves. Was this how cheating stories felt in the moment? Not as betrayal, but as a reckless, exhilarating escape? The night stretched on, time losing meaning, every touch, every whispered word pulling them deeper into something they couldn't name. And when it was over, when the last embers of the fire settled into quiet satisfaction, the only thing left was the realization that nothing would ever feel the same again. The morning after could have been awkward, filled with regret or second-guessing. But it wasn't. Instead, there was a strange kind of calm, like the storm had passed, leaving only stillness in its wake. Liam moved through the apartment with the same effortless grace, handing out coffee like this was just another morning. Jack stretched, let out a slow breath, and grinned like he had just won a bet. And the narrator? They sat there, cup in hand, feeling something they hadn't expected: admiration. For the ease between the three of them, for the way no one felt the need to explain or justify anything. No guilt, no tension. Just a quiet understanding that what had happened didn't need to be anything more than what it was. It's rare to walk away from an experience like this without complications. Most cheating stories are messy, tangled in emotions, consequences, and the weight of what comes next. But this was different. There was no need to define it, no pressure to mold it into something beyond the moment it existed in. And maybe that's what made it feel so significant. The narrator had expected chaos, guilt, the kind of self-questioning that usually followed stepping over a line. But instead, they felt free, like they had touched something raw, something real, and walked away with a piece of themselves they hadn't even realized was missing. Still, even in the quiet of that morning, something lingered beneath the surface. A thought, a feeling, a shift. The kind that doesn't hit all at once but settles in slowly, like an echo waiting to be heard. As they walked out of Liam's apartment, stepping back into the world that felt just a little different now, they couldn't shake the sense that this wasn't just a fleeting moment. That maybe, just maybe, this was the kind of night that didn't just pass. It stayed with you. And whether that was a good thing or a dangerous thing, well, that answer was still waiting to reveal itself. Stepping out into the daylight, the narrator felt the city moving around them as if nothing had changed. But inside, everything was different. The air still carried the warmth of the night before, a mix of exhilaration and uncertainty settling deep in their chest. They replayed every glance, every touch, every unspoken promise exchanged in the dim light of Liam's apartment. It wasn't just about desire. It was about crossing a threshold, stepping into a world where lines blurred and choices carried a weight they hadn't fully grasped yet. This was the kind of experience that lived beneath the skin, refusing to be forgotten. Infidelity stories weren't just about betrayal, they were about moments like these, where everything felt both right and wrong at the same time. But with the rush came the questions. What did this night mean? Was it just a single, reckless decision? Or was it the beginning of something more? The narrator wasn't sure. They had stepped into a world of temptation, of possibility, and now, standing at the edge of it, they weren't sure whether to turn back or keep walking. The thrill still pulsed through them, the echoes of Jack's smirk and Liam's quiet intensity refusing to fade. There was power in what had happened, an intoxicating kind of freedom that came with embracing the unknown. But freedom always came with a price. And whether they were ready to pay it, well, that was a question they weren't sure how to answer yet. As they walked through the streets, blending back into the rhythm of the world, a realization settled in. Some nights weren't just experiences. They were turning points. They shifted something fundamental, leaving you standing at a crossroads you never expected to find. The narrator could feel it. This was one of those nights. The kind that left a mark, that whispered in the back of your mind long after it ended. And maybe the real question wasn't about what had happened. Maybe the real question was about what came next. Because once you've stepped into the fire, can you ever really walk away untouched? Now that you've seen how one decision can spiral into something life-changing, I have to ask, how many people do you think are living in this exact same reality, trapped between desire and consequence? Infidelity and cheating aren't just stories. They're real, raw experiences that leave scars, whether you see them or not. And here's the real question. If you found yourself standing at that same crossroads, would you make the same choice, or would you walk away? The truth is, most people never stop to think about the weight of their actions until it's too late. They chase the thrill, ignoring the cost, until the price becomes unbearable. Maybe you're watching this and recognizing pieces of your own life. Maybe you've been betrayed, or maybe you were the one who crossed the line. Either way, it's time to ask yourself, what comes next? Will you let this be just another story of infidelity, another regret, or will you take control before the damage is irreversible? If this story made you think, if it hit a nerve, if it made you see cheating in marriage from a different perspective, then don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, turn on the notification bell, and most importantly, share this video. Someone out there needs to hear this, and you might be the one who opens their eyes before it's too late. Let's keep this conversation going in the comments. Have you ever witnessed a situation like this? What would you have done differently? Let's talk.